Hey YouTube, this is Jake from the Idabros coming at you guys with a totally different video compared to what we usually do. Now, normally, if you've watched any of the other videos, we are mostly a Yu-Gi-Oh channel. We've had things from vlogs to replays most recently, discussions, whatever the case is. Usually we kind of stay in that lane. We're talking about TCGs, playing them, and whatnot. Upon going through and uploading some replays lately and things of that nature, I really wanted to maybe try our hand at something different, something new. And if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, it's fun to kind of branch out a little bit. So in today's video, what we are talking about is going to be One Piece. Now, One Piece has been around for absolutely ever. It is definitely, at least to my knowledge, the longest running anime that has continuously been on the air. It's well over 20 years between all of its different content. Today, specifically, what we're going to be focusing on is going through and trying to condense the anime and the anime only. I'm going to try and not go through anything manga, movie related. I'm going to try and keep clear of filler as well. And we are going to go through the last 20 years, and I'm going to try and keep it as close, if not under 20 minutes. So it's going to be a huge challenge, and I'm going to try and lay everything out. Now, being that we are going to try and condense 900 episodes of an anime down into 20 minutes, there's going to be a lot of things that I miss. So, if this is something that you want to see any more information on, you want to see any quick takes, my opinions, whatever the case may be, I'm not an expert, but the reason why I'm doing this is I had not watched One Piece at all. I tried, I stopped, now I went through, it was about 3 months ago, and I started and I just binged it. And it took quite a while just because I have a lot of other things going on, but I am current now, which for me was really awesome because it is a super amazing series. I would really encourage, after you go through and watch this, if you haven't seen the anime, start it. I know it's daunting, it's just a tremendous amount of episodes, but it's worth it. So at this point, I'm already a couple minutes in. Let's go and just kind of start on the road here. So what we're going to do before we jump into the story itself is try and get some world building done, kind of go through some of the details. That way, the story itself, even though we skip a lot, makes some sense. The main character of the story is going to be right here in the middle in the red vest. His name is Monkey D. Luffy, also known as just Luffy or Straw Hat Luffy throughout the story. He always has a straw hat on him, and the straw hat itself has proven significant over the story. From there, when he essentially started out on his journey, he vowed to become the king of the pirates. Now, the reason why he wants to do that, for him being the king of the pirates, is the ultimate freedom. So he is not driven by money, fame, infamy, anything like that, that even in the One Piece world, in our world, is usually the driving factor of many's decisions. Luffy just wants to be the most free, and for him, that means driving to be the king of the pirates, or the pirate king. Throughout the story, he goes through and gets multiple different crewmates, not as many as a majority of the other pirate crews. He makes sure to keep his crew small and close. They are his friends, which is a overall theme of the story as well. And each one of them, for the most part, has their own specialty. So moving forward here, the story itself is driven, just like most animes, into different arcs or sagas. With each one of those, there's different stories that make them up. Here we have East Blue, which is going to be, and we'll get into that in just a second, where a majority of the originating members, the original members of the Straw Hats, they're called, where they're from or where Luffy finds them. So this is where the base comes into play, is in the East Blue. From there we have Alabasta, Sky Island, Water 7, Thriller Bark, Summit War, also called the Paramount War, um, Fishman Island, and the Pirate Alliance. Now, this does have the newer stuff not included in it, but I thought it was a cool little visual just to kind of break everything down into what we'll be talking about. From there, we have the Pirate King. So this is a man, his name is Gold D. Roger, also called to his discontent Gold Roger. He is going to be the man that was the king of the pirates prior to the story itself taking place. Goldie Roger also originated, from my understanding, from the East Blue, which is going to be the same ocean that Luffy comes from. He was the man that became king of the pirates, stood above them all. At the end of his career, after he did find the One Piece, he became ill. After he became king of the pirates, I guess I should say, he became ill. Before his time was done, he turned himself into the Navy, and they executed him. On his execution platform, he stated for the world to hear that he did find he had the greatest treasure. He found the greatest treasure, and he left it all in one piece. Now that's where the name of the story comes to be, and the goal of the story being coming Pirate King means finding Roger's One Piece. He didn't, tell anybody specifically that wasn't already with him, in his crew prior. Nobody knows where it is, what it is, how to find it, more or less. Now, that's something that we'll kind of get into a little bit later. But that is the story, right? He sparked the Great Pirate Age, which was pirates have always been prevalent in this universe, but there was just a massive influx after he announced to the world, hey, there's some gain, right? From there, this is going to be just kind of something quick to go through the geography of One Piece. We have one main vertical line that's called the Red Line. That is like a chunk of land that runs throughout the world. In the middle, we have the Grand Line. That's where a majority of the story itself is going to be taking place. That is a cut-off piece of the ocean. And there's two parts of it, and it is where all the crazy, powerful people, all that kind of stuff, kind of come into play. So that's Grand Line. Within the world, we have the Devil Fruit. And now these are fruits that give you specific powers. And there's 3 separate powers. We could go into that in a different video if anybody has any interest. You eat them, you get a power, you can't swim. That's kind of the crux of having it. So from there, we have the 4 Yonko. Here we have 5 because one of them has died in the story and replaced by another. We'll kind of go through here. So the 4 Yonko, they rule essentially the New World. They're one of the balancing powers. From there, we have these guys, which are going to be the 7 Warlords of the Sea. 7 Warlords of the Sea are going to be pirates that have been employed more or less by the world government. And now they're pirates that have, because of their power and their notoriety, been given essentially a pass. They've had their bounties taken away in order to go through and be of service to the government themselves. So here we have the world government. World government's the One Piece world being mostly water, at least from what we saw in the image there, are going to be their major military force is the Navy. Now the Navy, kind of awkward zooming in, the Navy is going to be ruling the water. Of those Navy, we have this really awkward. The 3 admirals that kind of stand above as the powerhouses of the Navy. We have them there. So moving into the East Blue, we're going to start kind of quickly going through the arcs. Here we have Luffy at the very beginning of the story when he's just a kid being given his trademark straw hat. Now that straw hat, prior to Luffy having it, was actually given to him by Shanks, which Shanks was or is one of the 4 Yonko. So now this is something that Luffy did not know at the time. Shanks is one of the, if not the most powerful character in the whole One Piece story. There are a few of them. We mentioned Whitebeard was one of the other Yonkos. There's a bunch of powerful characters. He is one of them. He is one of the most powerful ones. Um, Now, so we have Luffy here. Luffy meets Shanks. Shanks comes to Luffy's island when he is young in the East Blue. They meet. Luffy gets into some trouble. Shanks saves him. Shanks loses his arm in the process. Luffy wants to be a pirate. So that kind of starts going through the story. It shows, big time skip. Luffy going out in the water. Um, in the East Blue, Luffy meets and recruits a majority of his team. He meets Zoro, which is his swordsman in the East Blue, rescues him from a Navy establishment that he was set to be executed at. In the same area, he meets Nami, which is going to be his navigator, Usopp, which is his sniper and glorified liar. God Usopp, as he's called later in the story. But he meets multiple of these characters, Sanji as well, which is his cook, all in the East Blue. So the East Blue is really the start of the story, and it's going through, and Luffy is accumulating, and he's getting his his crew together, the main parts of his crew. There's more that are going to be coming later, but these core members, the original Straw Hats, are all introduced in this specific part of the story. From there, we go from the East Blue into Alabasta. So what happens is Luffy, his crew, he gets his something actually of note before we go any further. Luffy finally gets a ship from the same island that he meets Usopp on. They go through, there's shenanigans to be had. He rescues somebody, and she essentially gives them the ship, the Going Merry. So they go through, they trek their way up Reverse Mountain, which gets them into the Grand Line. They're finally out of the East Blue, and they get caught up in some craziness. So here in the far right on the backhand side, we have Princess Vivi. She is the princess of the Alabasta Kingdom. And what we find out is she is infiltrating a underground group called Baroque Works, and Baroque Works is headed by Crocodile, which at that time was one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Crocodile is going through and attempting to incite a revolution or a civil war in the Alabasta Kingdom that Vivi is princess of, in order to gain a political foothold. Luffy won't have this because Vivi has become Luffy's friend, and a central part of the story is Luffy will do anything for his friends. So she is more or less inducted temporarily inside of the group as a member. Before we get to Alabasta itself, which is a desert island in the Grand Line, we also get Tony Chopper, which we could see with the red hat down on the bottom. He's going to function as the group's doctor moving forward. He is a reindeer that ate the human fruit, giving him human capabilities. Also, with that type of fruit, there's many transformations that could be had. So moving forward, we talked about Crocodile's end goal is to go through and lay claim to the Alabasta Kingdom. It doesn't happen. That's pretty much, we know there's still, another 15 years of the story or whatever. It doesn't happen. Luffy is able to beat him. And this gives the story one of the ongoing themes, which is we see Luffy's major rival for a whole arc being one of the 7 warlords pretty early in his pirating career. So that was really awesome. There's a bunch of it's a really good story. A lot of people say it's one of the best. So Luffy goes through, beats Crocodile. One of the people that were working for Crocodile is Robin. Robin is an archaeologist that is from a place, an island that's called Ohara, which is a group of scholars, an island of scholars that was wiped out of existence. She is given a super high bounty when she is a very young age, which from there she's called, I believe, Demon Child Robin, something of that nature. She gets onto the crew as an archaeologist, and then they move forward. The next arc is going to be the Sky Island or Skypiea arc. What we find is Luffy hears of the Sky Island, and it's something where, much like the One Piece, a lot of people are, I guess it's not as much like the One Piece. More people are essentially wary of its existence because Sky Island is what it sounds like. Sky Island is an island that's in the sky, and to get there, most ships go through, or try and go through something that's called the knock-up stream, essentially this gigantic thing of water that just plummets from the regular blue sea, shoots a ship straight up into the clouds, and eventually, when they get high enough, these clouds um, form a sea of their own. It's called the White Sea, and there's the White Sea. So there's even two levels of that. From there, they run into a character, or these people that live on sky islands that look essentially like angels, and they're ruled by this guy right here, the dude with the menacing look in the background. His name is Enru, or God Enru. He rules over everybody there. He is the main antagonist of this specific arc. He has a lightning logia power, which is one of those where it's lucky and unlucky at the same time. He's definitely the most powerful character up until this point, and probably even after this point. But with Luffy being a rubber man, he is essentially like the natural enemy. He is the only one that can combat this lightning god. And he does just that. Within this part of the story, we are also introduced to, actually in the Alabasta arc as well, but we see it here, the poneglyphs, which the poneglyphs are ancient writings that nobody in the world except their one archaeologist, Robin, can read. They find another one in Sky Island. They go through. There's some civil unrest between these different factions in the clouds, and eventually everything's cool. Luffy beats Eneru, and they come back to the to the Blue Sea. From there, they come down into the Blue Sea. Their ship is wrecked, as you could imagine, by being shot up into the clouds and dropped back down into the sea. Their ship is absolutely wrecked. That brings us to the Water 7 arc. Water 7 is going to be a place in the One Piece world that has the most renowned shipwrights in the world. So people that can build ships. They go there to have their ship fixed, and we're introduced to a bunch of different characters. We're introduced to Frankie, which in this arc will be inducted into the Straw Hats. He is a shipwright that was trained by the same shipwright that went through and actually built the King of the Pirates ship. So he was trained by the guy that built Roger's ship. So Frankie is inducted into the Straw Hats. He was an enemy at a time. He went through and just wrecked Usopp. Wrecked him. It was terrible. And this arc, there's just a lot of different things. We have the Water 7 arc, which mainly goes through the ship and what friction is caused because the ship ultimately cannot be salvaged. And Usopp is, they all love the ship. They think of it as one of their teammates or their crew. Usopp, though, being most attached to the ship because of the origin of the ship being on his island, and the person that gave them the ship, Usopp, was really close to. It was, they had some sort of relationship. It was this chick gave him the ship, Usopp liked her, all that kind of crazy stuff. So that happened. There's some friction there. Now we get to this point where we're introduced to a government association that's called CP. This one's CP9. They are a group of agents that work directly underneath the world government, and they kidnap Robin. And the reason why is because Robin is who she is, right? She has a huge bounty. She can read, the poneglyphs. Just her being in existence means that, there's problems for the world government. within these poneglyphs, we also have found out in both this arc and in Alabasta that there are different ancient weapons that are inscribed in these poneglyphs, and these guys want to get their hands on the ancient weapons. So Robin goes through, gets kidnapped. We have this epic pose here where we have the remainder of the current Straw Hats coming to save Robin, and in that, they essentially have to strike, make enemies, I guess we could say, of the world government, because at this point, in their eyes, the world government is trying to take Robin away. Some super amazing character building in this arc. We get Frankie. Robin finally breaks down. She, at this point, had been an outsider in the group. She comes to a point where she feels like she can become, one of them. From there, we leave Water 7. We get into, the next arc, which is going to be Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark introduces us to a couple things. We have the induction of oh, sorry. So we have a few different things in Thriller Bark. So Thriller Bark is going to be essentially a huge ship that's floating through this part of the Grand Line. So it's crazy because what they have, it's not just a ship. It To them, it seems like a whole island, right? It's this massive, three-sailed, I believe it is, ship that has like the water that comes. It's nuts. But that ship is actually led by another one of the 7 warlords. So what we see here is his power. Gecko Moria is his name. He goes through and essentially is creating zombies, like more or less, like that's what this whole thing is. He is able to steal shadows and then go through and attach them to bodies, and like the bodies come alive and they have some of the original person's characteristics but don't. It's crazy. A couple cool things. Brooke is introduced in this, which is going to be this skeleton guy, if you've ever seen him. He's introduced. He actually had a devil fruit that didn't take effect until after he died. I want to say his original voyage was like 80 years ago. From then, his whole group unfortunately died. I believe they were poisoned, and he was a sole survivor. He was just, sailing aimlessly because the ship itself had been wrecked.